Welcome to the Weekly. I'm your host, Luke Gardner, and this week we are talking about the custom ink merger and the big trends to emerge from the last year. Let's jump in. So, an obvious lesson from last year is that the big are going to keep getting bigger. Industry consolidation is a really, really influential trend that every shop owner should keep an eye on. It's not going to slow down. Remember when TSC Apparel was acquired by S&S Activewear? Well, it's probably worth noting the ultimate catalyst for that change, which is the acquisition of S&S Activewear itself by a private equity firm. The crushing demand for corporate merchandise is another pressurization event for the industry. There's a ton of companies that want to buy stuff for their work-from-home teams, and it's going to be a really, really big deal, like a huge deal. Custom Ink thinks that it'll be a $100 billion a year business. Maybe merchandise helps with employee retention. I don't know, but I certainly like getting sweatshirts on the mail, and I really like seeing successful print shops. So, the Custom Ink merger. Custom Ink bought swag.com and Printfection. I was totally baffled by this acquisition until I read the press release. Custom Ink, the leader in custom apparel and accessories for companies, groups, and organizations, today announced the acquisition of swag.com, an innovative platform for corporate swag in the emerging gifting as a service category. The combination will help organizations of all sizes build meaningful bonds with their remote teams, customers, and partners through custom swag and gifting, and it will position Custom Ink for continued growth and success in that expanding $100 billion market. Wow, $100 billion! Meaningful bonds, remote teams, custom swag and gifting. I would very much like to be part of this market. And I'm thinking the people at Custom Ink kind of felt that way too. Do you think the conversation in the C-suite went something like this? I mean, I do. There are probably some other details, but I bet this is the gist of it. Hey, we're getting a ton of custom orders for corporate merchandise. Do you think that's something we should pay attention to? Oh, weird. Yeah, we always wanted to crack that market. So who does that really well? Yeah, it says here that swag.com does it pretty well, and there's this disruptive platform. I guess it's like $100 or $100 billion business. Whoa, that's pretty big. Wow, I wonder where we order our merchandise from. I think we do it in-house. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I've always wondered how Custom Ink orders their own custom merchandise. Look, yeah, I'm not going to worry about that. My point here is that we should consider acquiring one of these businesses before they get bigger than we are and are better at this than we are. Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. Wouldn't that be funny if a local business journal wrote some article that was oh, those wacky Custom Ink guys acquiring another corporate swag company? Acquisitions are something to definitely keep an eye on, and good luck to the Custom Ink crew. We hope this goes well. So let's dive into the meat of this week's weekly and talk about the three themes that are emerging in 2022 that you should keep an eye on. And the first one is the supply chain. None of us wanted to be supply chain experts, but here we are. So the supply chain, what the heck is that? What is it anyway? It's, plastic resin manufacturers on the Gulf Coast. It's Chinese cotton farms. It's entire South American towns oriented around factories that cut and sew. It's an intricate dance of trucks, boats, people. If I'm being honest, I'm kind of shocked at how well it actually held up in the first place, and that it functioned so well before the pandemic. I mean, entire factories froze last year when Texas got hit by that big storm. Shipping containers have been sitting idle for months. Floods and storms shut down entire South American factories. And guess what? The supply of plastisol is still not normalized. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, it's not normal. Cut and sew operations are still being impacted. Shipping costs from China to the US, all-time highs. And by the way, it's going to freeze in Texas again soon. Oh boy. So the gist of this is cheap, easy, fast. You get to pick two of them. Next trend are new pressures in the industry. I've talked and written about this before. I did a whole video on pressures in the industry. The typical print shop model, it's just under a lot of pressure from a lot of directions. Shops are getting squeezed. They're getting squeezed by suppliers. They're getting squeezed by customers. And I think something that is worth noting is the way that customer behavior has changed. A huge number of shops have told us that customer behavior is getting a lot worse More complaints, much less kindness, a lot more haggling and whining and difficult behavior that is hard to handle. And I think this change in behavior is really corroborated by lots of other service industries. So kicking customers to the curb is probably going to become more familiar. Like getting a script for firing customers might be valuable, I guess. I actually feel slimy saying that, but if they're a drag on the business or a drag on employee morale, maybe it's worth it. Maybe they should go. When the supply of raw products faces the kind of pressure that it has, there's usually like a recessionary environment, but that's not what is happening this year. Shops are under such pressure because the actual underlying productivity of the whole system can't keep up. This is probably a good problem to have. Jamie Dimon, he's from a tiny company called JP Morgan Chase. You might have heard of him. He said, the price of labor is going up. We're going to have to deal with it. And he still says that this is like a good problem to have compared to other economic scenarios. It's much worse to complain about 15% unemployment and a recession than it is to complain about wages going up too fast. So the whole situation is very, very weird. Like super weird. Do I even need to explain how weird it is? The final trend is hiring and retaining employees. So $15 an hour is about $30,000 a year before taxes and everything else. This is assuming you work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. Is that a lot? Is that a little? It kind of depends on who you ask, where they live, what they do. It's a very potent question. And I've seen a lot of, let's call it hesitancy around big wage increases in this industry. This makes sense. I just described how sketchy the entire business model is and how it's under pressure and there's all kinds of increasing costs and everything's all screwed up. And labor is the biggest cost for most shops. So hesitating because of increasing labor costs in this scenario makes a lot of sense. Everything's unpredictable. Margins are thin. Why pay more? I think that was kind of the logic anyway until like last year happened. So it seems like any real serious shop has had a big epiphany around labor. Maybe they had it a couple years ago. Maybe they had it this year, but it's happening. Good workers are not easy to come by. People that show up and do the work you need, do it well, like they're worth their weight in gold. Because screen printing isn't a career that 16-year-olds are coveting right now. It's really hard work. People also kind of think that you press a button somewhere and get a t-shirt out of a machine, and they're really stumped and like surprised and shocked when they learn how complicated of a process this really is. So the lesson here is really clear to me. If someone loves this job and the process and the shop they work in, you should hold on to them for dear life. Employers are planning really robust wage increases in 2022. And I would guess that print shops have been increasing their wages at a higher rate than the average business. The Great Resignation hit this industry really hard. People left bad wages, bad bosses, harsh working conditions, or they just had other circumstances that knocked them out of the workforce. Higher wages for the workers that have been reliable and stuck it out. I don't know, it seems like one way to mitigate really harsh turnover. I'm definitely going to dive deeper into like training, retaining employees, compensating them. This is like a tough industry-wide problem that we're all going to have to tackle together and deal with. And it's going to last for a long time. If you've ever seen the Reddit site Anti-Work, it's r/anti-work. This crew, like, they're telling us hair-raising tales about quitting their jobs. And people are getting behind them. This is a gut check. This labor market is here to stay, and it's not going away. Those are the big themes for this year, next year, probably the next few years, honestly. What trends are you watching? Did I get it right? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Hey, are you subscribed to The Weekly by Printavo? Head to printavo.com/blog/newsletter to sign up. The Weekly is Printavo's custom printing industry newsletter. Every week, I'll send you an in-depth newsletter that covers a topic that's important to your shop. Could be production management, could be sales, could be online stores. You never know. But you'll always get the newest Printavo content, articles, podcasts, videos, and more delivered straight to your inbox. Head to printavo.com/blog/newsletter to sign up.